Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins. Welcome to Financial Lovemaking. This is where we talk about love, life, money, and everything in between. I'm here with my buddy, partner, and co-host, the entertainment director at Ebony Magazine, Miss S. Tia Brown. How you doing today, Tia?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
I'm doing really well. You know, it's funny. I noticed that the mood of your response usually depends on the tone of the conversation we're about to have. If
Definitely.
it's an interesting or exciting or upbeat conversation, you're upbeat. If it's the like the one we're about to talk about now, the mood changes.
Absolutely. I internalize all of the things that we talk about to some extent. While we can be objective, when we have heavier topics, it definitely makes me more introspective. And then I also have empathy for the people that we're about to talk about. So,
Mm,
yeah, I
yeah,
can't.
I totally agree. And so to remove the suspense for people,
Whoa,
uh,
whoa, whoa, whoa.
the topic that we're about to discuss is one that appears on the website techieville.com, and it's basically a story about a man. I want to say his name is Robert Hull. Is that correct? Who was who base
Jason Hall.
Jason Hull? Sorry, and Jason. Basically, there was a baby, and the mother went to prison. And instead of signing the baby over to her biological father, she signed him over to the boyfriend. And guess what? The baby ends up dead.
Right.
The boyfriend abused her in many ways. They said they found bruises on her body and blunt force trauma to
To
the
her.
head, things like that. And so a lot of people are obviously upset about this, and a lot of people are,
Additionally, there was evidence of sexual abuse.
and which, yeah. Okay, so it upsets me just thinking about it because I had a cousin who was killed in the exact same way, 2 years old, murdered by her mother's boyfriend. So this really brings back bad memories for me. And I saw this and I thought that this was a great financial lovemaking topic because it really speaks to the idea of when we talk about merging your life, merging your most valuable assets with another person, giving them that power to influence your life by having access to the things that are most valuable to you. I think this is a perfect fit in terms of that discussion, right? Because there's no asset in your life more valuable than your kids, typically,
There
and
should be.
right. And so this idea of trusting someone with something so precious to you, we have to ask, are there ways to kind of avoid and prevent these kinds of tragedies? What do you think?
I absolutely agree with you. I would like to say, first and foremost, my condolences to the family of this little girl. She was 2 years old. She was absolutely innocent. And no child, no person, but definitely not a child, deserves to suffer in the manner in which she did. And it's a really challenging situation because we want to always think that if we choose a partner and they love us the way we love them, that they're going to love our kids and love our family and have our best interest at heart. But unfortunately, that's not always the case. We have to do a lot of vetting when we're putting our total trust of not just ourselves and our personal health and well being, but that of others in someone else's hands. So, since we don't know a lot of the backstory in this case, we can only go based on what we do know. And that is that this mother went to prison and she decided to, instead of signing the child over to her biological father or a family member, she signed custody over for her 2-year old daughter to this man. And unfortunately, Ho wasn't a person who had a great reputation or history before this. He had a history of criminal activity, and it was just a really poor decision on the mom's part. I'm sure it's something that she'll regret for the rest of her life because now, like you said, her most precious asset is gone. The biggest thing to learn from this is we can't put our personal search for love before the well-being of those who are less vulnerable, more vulnerable rather than ourselves.
Yeah,
So
and I think there's a father's rights issue here too. Why wasn't this child sent back to live with his father, right? I mean
absolutely,
that.
and the father actually spoke up to this.
Hmm.
He said there was no court order saying that he could not have custody of the child, and he was interested in having custody of the child, and he was not given the opportunity to get custody of his daughter. And when there was time for the child to visit him, she did not show up for the visitation, and then she was later taken to the hospital. So it's really a great point that you brought that up.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this man was involved in the life of his child. This man had visitation. The court had not ruled that he wasn't capable of raising his child. So why the hell wasn't this baby with the father? Why is it that we somehow think that the child should be with the mother's boyfriend before he's with the actual father. Yeah, we know that the mother signed the papers sending the child to the boyfriend, but that's not her right to do that. You can't take away that man's right to be there to protect his child. I'm gonna throw something else into the mix, and I'm gonna be gentle when I throw it out here because people may not totally get it. But if they don't get it, I want them to go watch some of the lectures on evolutionary human behavioral biology by Professor Robert Sapolsky at Stanford University. One thing Sapolsky says is that human beings and mammals, we're part of the mammal kingdom, we operate on the exact same instincts. The difference is that human beings apply the instincts in a more sophisticated way, but he said that we're just like other members of the mammal kingdom. And one thing that happens in the mammal kingdom that does link to this is what they call infanticide. Infanticide is it's part of the competition between males. And basically, what happens in the animal kingdom is that there are many, many instances where the male mammal will murder the offspring of the woman that he's trying to have sex with, because then the competition is gone. He gets to have his own children. Things happen to her body biologically afterward, which make her more fertile. So he gets to reproduce himself as opposed to dealing with this other man's seed. Now, here's the way the biologists say this applies to humans. It doesn't mean that your boyfriend's going to want to kill your kids. It does happen. I told you it happened in my family. It happened in this case. It's happened all over the place. I talked to a cop who basically said, "Oh, there are a couple." He worked in the Crimes Against Children unit, and he said, "Oh, it's like clockwork." He said, "Every single day, every day, we have a case where the child was being either beaten or raped, and the mother had no idea. The boyfriend's doing all this while she's at work, and she thinks everything's okay." So this happens all the time across the board, nationwide. So I think that what I'm seeing here is it's not to say, oh yeah, well, you can never trust your boyfriend with your kids. That would be silly to say. What I'm saying is that you have to vet people over a series of many, many months to ensure that your children are going to be safe. You also have to communicate to your kids if they're old enough. Now, a 2-year-old you can't do that with, but if they're old enough, communicate to them on how to let you know as a parent that abuse might be occurring, because it typically any kind of abuse occurs from someone that you don't expect. So that's what I'm really seeing here. I think that this was clearly avoidable. Just like when my cousin died, 2 or 3 days before she died, people saw bruises on the little baby's head, and everyone asked, a couple of people asked, well, what's going on? What's happening with the baby? And she said, oh, well, she fell or something. And really, her boyfriend had beaten this child. So again, I'm not trying to put my family's business on blast, but I don't care. This is important. There are millions of kids out here right now who are in danger. And I think that we have to really step up our game in terms of making sure that these kids are protected. So that's what I'm really seeing here. And if you think that I'm mad about this story, it's because I'm mad about this story.
Right. So I totally feel your passion, and I wasn't not totally on the same page with the infanticide information, because I don't want people to now be completely paranoid about entrusting a third party that you've spent time with, you love, and who's responsible with the safety and care of your child. So I think it's very important that people are able to differentiate making a very irresponsible decision or not having your eyes wide open with other cases. But I do think the overall message here we're on the same page with is you have to be mindful of who your child is around. You have to make sure that you don't become blinded by the desire to have someone special in your life, that you're not taking care of big picture, your biggest investment, the child, right? So, it's really sad. And I also want to point out that abuse happens from many different parties, not just stepfathers. It can happen from stepmothers. It can happen from biological mothers, biological parents, uncles, aunts, grandparents. So parents have to be vigilant overall. Adults in the community, let me correct that, need to be vigilant overall, because you never know who is being abusive to a child. And abuse isn't just physical or sexual. A lot of times it's emotional abuse, which can be damaging in its own right. So again, my condolences to the family for this. And I say to all parents and all adults who have little ones that they love, keep your eyes open. Be mindful of anything that can possibly seem inappropriate, because you can literally be changing a child's life.
Absolutely. I don't even have anything else to say. I believe it or not, I got everything out. I appreciate you letting me vent on this.
Yeah.
I'm literally internally I'm shedding tears for this little girl. I mean, I feel like I'm as hurt right now. I'm almost as hurt right now as if she were my own child because nobody wants to think about an innocent 2 year old going through something like this. We're supposed to protect kids. And my argument is that, as members of the black community, because we have so many children who are in unstructured households who don't have both parents there to protect them, we need the village. We need the village to protect those kids that are not our own. You don't have to have a child in order to be a parent. That child may need your protection. And I know that growing up, my dad wasn't perfect, but I'm talking about the dad that raised me, not my biological father. My biological father wasn't there, but my dad wasn't perfect. But one thing that my dad gave me was protection. Even though I wasn't his child, and this goes to your point that not every father who is not a biological father is there to really harm you. But I can say that my dad would have killed for me if I came home one day and any of us came home and said, "Oh, the neighbor molested me" or whatever. That man might not be alive the next day. And so when you take that element out of households and kids don't have that kind of protection, you have to feel for them. So I think that we have to find ways to protect our kids from anyone who might harm them. So
Absolutely.
may this little girl rest in peace.
That I wanted to, yes, definitely. Another thing that I wanted to bring up before we go is something that we spoke about before we started taping is that people need to be mindful of not just female children, but also male children. Any child can be a target for emotional, sexual, and physical abuse. Oftentimes we have conversations with our little girls or our nieces, about, don't let a guy touch you or don't let this woman, often we assume that it's going to be a guy's a perpetrator act too. But so we need to be mindful of that as well. But we need to talk to our sons, the little boys that we love, that we care about, and let them know about inappropriate touch and let them know that they too can possibly be victims and it's nothing to be ashamed of. And one of the great things that my mother did was she talked to us about sexual abuse all the time, to the point where I would get annoyed because she would question us not just around, straight after we'd spent time with strangers, but also around male family members, around anybody. And I just think it's really important for parents to create that open dialogue. So if anything slightly inappropriate happens, a child feels comfortable to speak and tell you whatever happened immediately to prevent it from snowballing. Because predators prey on children's silence and their fear and their discomfort and their ignorance, right? Because that's what the innocence is. So talk to your children, both your boys and your girls, and keep your eyes open.
Absolutely. Enough said. Well, thank you very much, Tia. It was wonderful talking to you today. And
Absolutely.
yes, and thank you everybody for checking us out. And until we meet again, be strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.